I'm a 960 SAT guy. I cannot read a speech.
They're literally telling you.
I'm a 960 SAT guy. I cannot read a speech. I'm a 960 SAT guy. I cannot read a speech.
They're literally telling you.
It's not a gaffe when when it is a pervasive ideology. Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. I am Carrie Bartholomew, otherwise known as Carib Marcel. It's complicated. Please like, share, and subscribe. I'm going to do these probably every single Tuesday. Today I'm a little bit off and I still have something else to record today, but I wanted to share with you my thoughts on what Gavin Newsom was saying and why it's more than just a joke. He's able to dismiss it as a joke because he's a progressive and he has right think, right? But there's more to it than that. So I want to share with you a little bit of my own story. I began to read very early. Before I was in kindergarten, I was reading books like Little Women. I had all of the classic early readers, but I also understood chapter books. I comprehended them. I lived in a small town in the poorest district in Washington State. My mother was a welfare queen, but not the kind of woman you might be expecting. She wasn't an African American wearing a bonnet. She was a white woman who looked a lot like Sissy Spacek in the movie Carrie. And in many ways, my life was just like that. My mother demanded perfection. She demanded it in the way that I dressed and in my behavior. My mother was extremely cruel. She called me slave girl, and she made me call her Your Majesty. She beat me with cable cords on a regular basis for even the smallest offenses, including if my little brother, who was 8 years younger than me, had a wet diaper. She held my hands in boiling water and would put them down there and say that this is how you get used to water before you wash the dishes. I was very much treated like Cinderella. She reveled in humiliating me. Once she pinned underwear to the outside of my clothing and paid another student to report to make sure that I wore that when I went to school. That was my early life, or at least as much as I feel like sharing today. And yet, despite all of that, I actually pity my mother for who she was, as well as having a sense of gratitude because surviving that made me strong. And also because her gift of teaching me how to read is something that stayed with me forever. So how did I make it through? I read. I read voraciously. In the books I loved, there was always a theme. These were my favorite kind of books. You probably share them. They were books about developing character and overcoming. Stories like Snow White scrubbing the floors, but still being a pleasant person, to Mary blooming in her secret garden, to Corrie ten Boom learning that you could even be thankful for the lice. I learned who I wanted to be from books. You could say they saved me. They were my teachers when the adults failed me. They showed me that suffering was not the end of the story, that discipline mattered, that character mattered. Books have always been one of the most important things in my life. When I aged out of foster care, I was completely on my own. I am 18 years old, dropped off in a city. I have 1 month's rent. And the very first thing I do with my very first job is go to Barnes and Noble and go to the self-help section and start to realize who it is that I want to be. how it is that I can learn to be gracious. Even basic things like how to build a wardrobe on a thrift store budget. I learned from reading. When I needed to escape my roommates in college, go to uh, I would go to an old used bookstore that had a bunch of cats, and I would pet their cats and I would read books. Books meant opportunity. They meant I could better myself by applying what I learned. And years later, when I became a parent, I passed on that love of reading to my own child. My son was bright, curious, and gifted, but he struggled with writing. And that was something I could not help him with. It's still something that I could not help him with. A lot of people will say, "Oh, Carrie, you're a very good writer. Why don't you write a book? Why don't you write your life story?" The thing is that I need a constant editor because that is something just escaped my very bad upbringing. But when progressives put that on people and say that all people have that upbringing just because they share my skin tone, that is low expectations. So the thing is that these teachers, they would mark my son off, and then they would say, I would look at the content and I would say, I don't understand. His content is well beyond his years. And they would say, we know there's a problem, but we can't tell you what it is, which did not help me. And this was in a gifted program in an elementary school, and that didn't help me. So luckily, I found a school. And the school that I found is a very special place because not only I live in a small town and it's a small school, but there are other chapters of it. And one of them is the School for New Americans. So these are immigrant kids who are coming in and they're learning how to achieve. And it gives them the best seat at the table when they have the right foundations. Foundations like punctuation and structure, the mechanics of thoughts on paper. When I asked the teachers for help, they couldn't explain something was wrong. When they had a strong foundation and every kid was expected to meet it, the kids thrived. These are some of the brightest kids in the state of Utah that attend this school, and oftentimes they're immigrants or African Americans who are just as capable as anyone else. And Gavin saying this is a pervasive thing that African Americans hear. And now I'm starting to learn that other people are being told the same thing. Immigrants are being told the same thing. If you are smart, if you are studious, then you are acting white. That has been a massive shame. That has put so many people into ghetto behaviors over the years because they were told that to get an education, to better yourself, was to act white. Now, why would you say that? People will say, oh, we teach it out of compassion. We teach it because people are traumatized. I should have put the video of the teacher saying that it is traumatizing to kids to expect excellence if they're Black or brown. But you can look that up. So why is it that people say that? Well, there's two reasons. One, because a whole bunch of people, especially our younger teachers, have swallowed the lies that they've been taught. And the other is because they want to keep us in our place. I don't know how you can look at that any other way. They tell you, I use this example all the time of Lucy and Shaniqua. Lucy and Shaniqua are best friends. They're in first grade and they walk into class and the teacher says, all right, class, tell me what you want to be when you grow up. And Lucy and Shaniqua, they want to be exactly the same. And so these two kids who always hold hands, maybe even wear a sweater together with one arm sticking out either side, they stand in class and Lucy says, I want to be a doctor. And the teacher goes, oh, that's wonderful. And then Shaniqua says, yeah, me too. I want to be a doctor. And the teacher, whether she says it or not, has a brief hesitance and thinks, but Shaniqua, that's going to be kind of hard for you because, I mean, you're Black. And this has happened. I know a very, very affluent African American or biracial family. The father is Black. They ran a medical clinic. And during the whole DEI stuff, their kids were actually taught to see themselves as victims when they're some of the most financially privileged people I've ever met. But that's what happens when we have low expectations. And oftentimes, these very affluent, rich, comfortable people who have everything at their fingertips throw it away because they don't want to be accused of acting white. This is sad. This is the condition that we're in. So, when I enrolled my son in this school, this school that is similar to the school for new Americans, he was taught writing the way that it had been taught for hundreds of years: grammar, phonics, structure, and logic. The foundations that had been quietly discarded as old-fashioned or outdated in so many of our schools under, again, progressivism. Oh, kids can't read unless the picture mirrors them. And so then your kids are reading books that you're like, I don't want my child reading that book. I have sat at a courtroom and had many African Americans in the line with me, all saying, this isn't the quote unquote Black experience I want for my child. And a Black experience that says that every child grows up in the ghetto, or admittedly, every child grows up like me, because I am the stereotype. I am. When you think of the very worst things that can happen to a person, I've had all of them. All of them have been my growing up experience. And yet, reading saved me. So instead, we're told that children should only read books that mirror their own experience, or books that push a particular political agenda. So the books that I love, the books that I've already mentioned, from Snow White to Little Women to The Secret Garden, have been revised. Yes, you can still get the classical books, but if you aren't careful, you will get a revised version. And the revised version takes out that resilience, takes out that transforming from inside and becoming a better person, and turns it into social justice for your 7 to 12-year-old. So the fight, and it is a battle. You know, the whole "We Shall Not Be Moved" song? It is a battle to push excellence for Black kids, or for any kids, because what has happened is that Black kids were the guinea pig, and they were taken back, and they figured out um, how to seriously harm them. I will not say broken, because it is so easy when given the right circumstances, when given the right kind of surroundings. It is so easy to transform and to help a student become successful. You just have to turn off the negative, the progressive ideology that tells them you can't. And it really, really does. So instead, our children are being told that they should only read books that mirror their experiences and that push a particular worldview. And that worldview is big government. Big government will save you. Use your voice to push for big government. Well, I have lived under big government. I don't know if you've ever been poor, but I have, obviously. And I remember going to the warehouse and getting the big chunk of cheese, and that lasted us, like a month. And I remember going and getting new glasses and seeing all of the glasses up on the walls like they are today, but then they'd pull out another box, and that other box was the poor kid box. And I would look in the poor kid box, and I hated those glasses. They were ugly, but those are what I had to have. Now, today in our entitlement culture, Everybody gets the nice glasses. I don't even think there is a poor kid box. I will tell you though, that poor kid box taught resilience. The progressive thing of we will always take care of you, the money runs out. And our kids don't learn that. And especially when it is ridiculously privileged people in their multi-hundred-dollar shoes standing there and going, oh yeah, I'm just like you. I can't read either. You're nothing like the people who need to be believed in. In fact, you're exposing your privilege. If you are that stupid, if you are truly ignorant and you can't read, then what the H are you doing as a governor? Oh, it's called privilege. And it has nothing to do with the color of your skin. It has everything to do with who your family is. But then you tell these people, I'm just like you. I can't read either. You normalize for these people that this is the way the world sees you. And it doesn't matter if the people in the room were actually all geniuses. It matters the sound bite that went out for everybody else, especially in a society that continuously tells our kids, don't try. Trying is hard. And again, I watch this in the classroom right now. I watch kids go, I can't write that essay. But where did we learn that this is a successful thing to do, that this actually works? That not believing in people works? We learned it from the Black population. We learned it from the people that we crushed. I learned a phrase the other day that people, when social justice came into churches, they stopped being a trying people and started being a crying people. And that I learned from the Jay Witt podcast. Stopped being a trying and started being a crying. And that is what we have committed. That is what we have created in so many of our young, vulnerable people. When we are intentionally taught not to think, then we don't consider the consequences. When we think, oh, we all deserve free stuff. Well, when we all deserve free stuff, the free stuff will run out. We chase quick gratification and believe we've won, and we never realize the cost in the long term. And we accept scraps as long as they look like we're getting special recognition. Oh, we've been chosen for this thing. Yay. And we're so excited when it's our group. But because we've been taught constantly to resent, we are not excited when it's somebody else's group. It comes back to, but what about me? And again, we've been conditioned to be that way because I have been in classrooms where one of the first things kids learn is to cheer on their classmates, cheer on other people, be happy for other people. But we have been taught to put ourselves into a box where we only can listen to people who mirror our beliefs and our experiences. The thing is that a lot of the people who cannot stand what I say have my shade of skin, and they did not mirror my experience. I even know a lot of people who grew up in the foster system who I have shared their stories, I've interviewed them, who did not mirror my experience. And they don't have to. See, that's the thing. I could look at Mary Lennox, a girl from England who was originally from India and then goes to England, and I could see in her myself. I could see why she wouldn't want to get to know anybody because they might disappear, they might abandon her. So there's a common thread that we have that everybody has. This is called a universal common thread. But we take that away when we say embed everything with social justice and, yes, victimhood. So this accept the scraps as long as they look like recognition or special privilege. That tactic is not new. They used to use it on the slaves. They would get the slaves like right around Christmas time, and what they would say to them is, "Hey, we're going to bring these tradesmen in, we're going to bring in wine," kind of like the whole bread and circus idea. "We're going to bring all of these things in, and you can use your money right here. All that money you've saved up, you can use right here." And they would just squander, 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 and lose everything that they had saved that would have eventually made them go free. And instead, they squander and they end up still in debt, still owned. So we're told that knowledge is power, but then knowledge is withheld from us. To me, that's true systemic oppression. When decades of people are taught one narrative: your people cannot succeed because of past slavery. When we are taught that, we have once again enslaved ourselves. So we cannot continue to normalize the idea that an ethnic group simply does poorly academically. We cannot shrug and say, well, that's just the way it is for those people. It always comes down to investment. What is poured into a child? I am kind of afraid that you're not hearing me because I haven't been speaking into my microphone, but we'll see. So I want to talk to you about Ben Carson. And Ben Carson is just the one that we know of, right? But there are so many people, normal, everyday people. I know some of these people who work in factories, they work in cherry plants, and they instill in their children that the most important, their full-time job is to be A students. So these women, oftentimes, they go and they work, and then they go from one job to another job, and they expect their children to learn. So what you invest determines your outcome. I don't believe, I'm not a doctor, but I do not believe that people are inherently smarter than others. And the reason that I don't believe this, again, my whole thing of the most vulnerable, is because we fostered and we had kids who would come to us who were pretty close to being nonverbal, or who only screamed, or who had serious behavioral issues. But in my house, a rule in my house was we didn't watch TV when they were little. Excuse me. We didn't watch TV. Instead, I played audiobooks or I read all the time. And when you have a little boy who they say, "Oh, he's special needs, he can't achieve anything." And this boy happened to be Caucasian. So this little boy who supposedly can't do anything, he's listening to Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn in the car. And after a couple of years, this little boy starts saying, "Hey, mommy, can we listen to Thomas Sawyer?" And this kid, by the time he gets into kindergarten, he's at the top. He's the absolute top of his class because we invested in him. And see, one of the most frustrating things for me that I've only recently heard about are these NGOs. And the idea that some, not all, there are a few good ones, but that some of them say, "We're going to invest in your child. We're going to give your child high quality opportunities." And they constantly push social justice. Because the reason I hate social justice is not because I hate justice. It's because it's this couched lie of any opportunity to teach your child that they can't, that they are a victim, and the only thing that they can do to fight their oppression is to use their voices, not their brains. That is it's such a frustrating thing because there are solutions and I know them firsthand, and we don't talk about them. I get called an extremist because I'm like, can we go back to what worked? Oh, no, no, no. The idea of going back to what work in itself makes you an extremist. But yet, under Booker T. Washington, those people took a chicken coop and built a university. And they produced doctors and they produced lawyers and they produced tradesmen who were the best of the best. And he taught kids to speak Greek and Latin. And their numbers, they were coming up to where the white kids, this is in the segregation time, right? They were coming up to the same place. And then all the way up into the 30s, there was this upwardly mobile, families intact thing, and we couldn't have that. So instead, the progressives came in and decided, let's start teaching social justice. Let's start poisoning people. So the poor African American community is often treated as politically useful. They are often used. They are stripped of academic rigor. They are fed grievance instead of skill. They are praised loudly for being loud. And instead of academic excellence, they call it joy when they disrupt. And ultimately, all this does is leaves these people ineffective. Do you see how wrong that is? I I don't like the word racist because it's so overplayed, but do you see how racist that is? And then the other thing is that it wasn't, like I said, they were just the guinea pigs. The people who want to truly oppress, they don't care what group. It's no longer about race. Now the victim class is those people who they've normalized mental health, right? So they've normalized and they've made that new group of people victims and narcissists and, you know, everything must be about me. And they did that to multiple generations. So my mother, despite her cruelty, she invested in me a love of words. And trust me, I understand that I don't always get them right. But she gave me this hunger to learn, this hunger for curiosity. And that gift crossed so many boundaries. It literally erased grievances. Because I know that at the end of the story, the heroes, the good people, they often win. And if there's even a chance that they can win, I would rather have that than be miserable. That's what we've stolen from our kids when we push garbage into their books. And this has nothing to do with whether or not a couple decides that people fall in love with whomever they fall in love with. That is not the kind of garbage I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that they always have to push resistance. They always have to push a socialist agenda in the books. They've robbed people of it's constant. It's a constant grievance. It's constant. Everything is wrong. We must dismantle the fact that everything is wrong and there's freaking no room to breathe. And we've done that to our kids. So I've watched a political ideology rob from an entire group of people. They have stripped literacy, they've stripped discipline, and they have stolen intellectual inheritance. And they're okay with it. They normalize it. They say, oh, I'm just like you. I'm just like you, just a dummy. And probably the hardest thing in that video that I didn't share was that people laughed and clapped. They were amused by it. And maybe they were amused by it because it's not them. But to not feel pain for the people that it is, just tells me that the empathy rhetoric is extremely false. So books gave me my freedom. They changed the trajectory of my life. They changed the next generation for me. They changed my son's life. Literacy is not optional. It's not outdated, and it's not oppressive. It is the way out for so many people. So I hope you'll think about that. Um, when you hear laughing, when you see, like, just tell people, especially children, they absolutely can do it. Hold them to high expectations. Look and see the stories of older, because one of the problems that they've done is they have stolen and diluted stories of people like Booker T. Washington, of Clara B. Williams. They've taken these stories and they have diluted them so that the only heroes can be social justice activists. So go find them and read them to your kids and understand that this rhetoric is a poison. And I will see you next time. Let me see if I have any notes. Chat. I don't think I opened it. I didn't open it. So, all right, next time I'll be sure to open it. Let me know in the comments when would be a good time. Like, should I do these in the daytime around lunch, or should I do them in the evening or the weekends? I have a lot of flexibility. I do teach, but I have a flexible schedule. So I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you for listening. Bye.